this hot and sensitive issue, I knew I would have to support my passionate preference for Hamantaschen over Latke with cogent argument. So I pondered what area of endeavor did I know about which could be utilized to convince you of the justice of my cause, which of course is the superiority of the Hamantaschen. Then I had an aha moment, as in, aha, here before me is a lovely, sweet, triangular, prune-filled cookie on my plate, with no one else around that I should share it with. After almost 40 years of daily courtroom work, what I know most about is the subject of lawyers. I know lawyers. I'm married to one, I have a son that's one, and at one time I like to think I was a pretty good one myself. They come in all sizes, shapes, colors, skin and attire, sexes and abilities. And what I really know is how to tell the good ones from the bad. Thus, I decided to use this knowledge as a kind of metaphor for the subjects of this debate. And I have concluded, and I sincerely hope that you will too, at the conclusion of my remarks, that the wonderful Hamantaschen can be likened to a super lawyer, while conversely, the bad lawyer, the schlock lawyer, the cringe-inducing lawyer, the one we hear all the bad jokes about, will be compared to the Latke.
Excuse me, I was led to believe there would be no personal attacks here.
Well, if the shoe fits right. However, first, in the interest of candor, I must acknowledge one area where the Latke betters the Hamantaschen, and that pertains to the killer instinct. How do you define the killer instinct? It is relishing the moment, usually in a courtroom, where the witness is mercilessly eviscerated, humiliated, shouting, "Stop, uncle, I've had enough," or even, "I confess it was me," or at least not him, referring to the defendant. Personally speaking, I used to fantasize in days of yore about doing just this when I was plying my trade as a criminal defense attorney. I would long to do a Perry Mason to cut the heart out of a lying witness, but I digress. The Latke wins here. Why? Because the Latke, when it is prepared traditionally, has its brutal component. That is to say, that all true Latke makers know that they must hand grate the potatoes and onion. And this inevitably leads to the shedding of the cook's blood from fingers that come too close to the cutting blades. We also all know that this blood is the secret ingredient and makes it especially tasty. Hamantaschen, alas, contains no blood. But let me make this clear. This is my only concession. So you ask, what are the attributes of a fine attorney? Preparedness and a plan that is followed, but one which should always be flexible. Good form is important, as is strength of character, and of course a passionate belief in one's client and case. A good lawyer is also creative and has staying power for a long case, because sometimes that's what happens. A good lawyer should always have a good story to relate that holds the listener. Also, a fine advocate must have the ability to stand alone in adversity. And finally, she must have integrity. I suggest to you, in the strongest possible terms, that in each of these qualities, the sound and firm Hamantaschen dominates the lowly Latke. So first, having a plan, being prepared. Following that plan, but with flexibility. That's a Hamantaschen. The recipe is straightforward and precise. The oven setting does not change, but the flexibility is there too. The fillings can be prune, or apricot, or raspberry, or poppy seed, or even chocolate. The Latke, no way. You wonder, how much salt? How much flour? Can't really say, because it all depends on the size of the potatoes and the onion. And then you have to guess. A good lawyer never guesses. But it doesn't end there, because the project keeps changing. You have to keep draining and perhaps adding more ingredients. And then the speculation continues. Is the oil hot enough? But a good lawyer never speculates. The next attribute is that of being sincere, and along with that being straightforward. Well, of course, that's the Hamantaschen. You can always depend on its shape, that wonderful triangle, the strongest geometric shape in the universe, used to build the great pyramids of the ancient world and the massive skyscrapers of today. You can depend on that shape, and it won't disappoint. A good lawyer can be depended upon. But not so a deceptive or a sleazy one, which, like a latke, oozes with oil. Both lawyer and latke never completely free of the taint of that oil. And comparing form, you never really can count on what shape the latke will be in. Like an unreliable lawyer, the latke has no consistent shape or form. Is it an oval today, or maybe a sphere? Does it have ragged edges, or perhaps no edges at all? Then there is a quality of staying power, even in adversity. Like an able advocate who immediately impresses, but more significantly, does not eventually let you down, the Hamantaschen can be relished right out of the oven, warm and delectable, perhaps with a dollop of vanilla ice cream, or put away for later or even another day, secure that it will remain fresh and delicious. But the latke is literally a flash in the pan. You better get one quick, right out of that pan, because shortly thereafter, it is like the flashy lawyer who will be limp, uninspiring, and disappointing. I said before, good lawyers are creative and have good stories to tell. Well, think about the story from whence a Hamantaschen comes. Purim. What could be a more terrific story? One that's filled with passion, jealousy, love, and revenge, where ultimately good triumphs over evil. Hanukkah, when we eat the latke, is a good story too, but it's all about the oil and its endurance for 8 days. It's not about the latke. Think about it. If our ancestors had fried latkes on that first night, there's a good chance all the oil would have been used up. And where would we be today? A fine lawyer must have self-confidence and the ability to stand alone and fight, sometimes against great odds. She should not simply join along with other counsel, but that is what the latke does. While they are sometimes served alone as an hors d'oeuvre, more often than not, it is an adjunct to a tasty pot roast. And they virtually never stand alone. In fact, with that formless shape, they never stand at all. But consider, when you do eat a latke, isn't a bowl of applesauce or sour cream in the immediate vicinity? But the Hamantaschen stands, and probably could on its own if the angles are straight enough. In its loveliness, self-confident to be eaten as a complete snack or a satisfying dessert, perhaps if desired with a cup of tea or coffee or a glass of milk, but not necessarily. Ultimately, a good lawyer has good character and can persuade others as to the justice of her cause. Similarly, a Hamantaschen, it too convinces the eater that he was wise to choose it for its reasonableness, not too sweet, its lightness, not too heavy, and its ability to please. But the latke, like a bad lawyer, only leaves regret in its trail. Regret and sometimes a stomachache. The latke, like its bad professional counterpart, can be too oily, too heavy, too many of the things you thought were appealing at first, but ultimately leave a bad taste. So finally, like a good lawyer, I hope, in summation, when facing an impartial and intelligent jury, I am confident that after considering all of the arguments, that you will find in favor of the honorable and delicious Hamantaschen. Thank you.